Jake Paul seems to always find a way onto these segments, right?
I found it.
I had seen the art, but I found another article. So the first one, it's Jake Paul and Dana White talking about him being willing to join UFC, which is hilarious. But then there's another one about them...
Where he claps back.
Where they clap back with drug test references, saying that they need to drug test each other. So this stuff it gets funnier every time. So it says, Jake Paul to Dana White, I'll fight Masvidal under these conditions. UFC president claps back. Basically, Dana White didn't waste any time firing back at Jake Paul after the problem child issued a list of demands, he said, for the UFC prez to meet if he wished to set up a Jake Paul versus Jorge Masvidal fight in the UFC. Jake Paul said that he's willing to get inside the octagon against Masvidal for a UFC fight, but first, he wants Dana White to do a few things. So he's putting out his list of demands here. The YouTuber just laid out his terms and conditions for a potential bout against Gamebred? I don't know. Yeah, it says, saying he wants UFC fighters to get what he feels they deserve. So paid better, I'm guessing. Happy New Year, Dana White. Here's a real challenge for you. I will immediately retire from boxing and fight Masvidal if the UFC agree to, and then he lists it here in the... We can pull it up here. On Twitter. It says, increase the minimum fighter payout per fight to $50K. It's $12K right now. Guarantee UFC fighters 50% of UFC annual revenues, which they was $1 billion in 2021. Holy crap. Provide long-term health care for all fighters. You have previously said brain damage is part of the gig. Imagine if the NFL said that. There are many UFC alums that have publicly said that they are suffering from brain damage. And you have 5 days to accept and implement the above by March 31st. You have 5 days to accept and then to implement. So you have 5 days to accept the terms, and then you have to implement all of them by March 31st, 2022. Once implemented, I will immediately retire from boxing and enter USADA and agree to a one-fight deal with UFC to fight weak chin Jorge. To all UFC fighters, take time to take a stand and create value for yourselves and peers. You deserve higher pay, you deserve long-term health care, and above all, you deserve freedom. Support each other. I am not your enemy. I am your advocate who selfishly wants to KO a few of you to make big bank. He is a fantastic personal marketer. He is like, he could teach a master's class in marketing. For himself on how to market your own. If you have your own brand. Not for a company.
Jake Paul, that's a smart move. Unless like you're too lazy to make your own like brand for that. There's also Skillshare. We're not sponsored.
That would have been hilarious if you actually had a sponsor. I
should do transitions for like Skillshare
for ads that aren't actually ads.
Exactly.
In a public post to the UFC boss, Jake wrote. So then they go on about what he wrote, and then Masvidal responds, says, the UFC isn't going to let me go for chump change, make that 20 guaranteed plus pay-per-view, and I'm sure the UFC will be okay with it as long as I break them off their feet, and then I'll gladly break your face. So basically he said that Michael Benson says, Jake Paul has publicly offered Masvidal $5 million plus a percentage of pay-per-view sales to fight him next. Let's make it happen. That's the most you'll have ever gotten paid. Daddy Dana just has to let you out of your contract. You work for the UFC. You're a bitch. So Jake Paul is pushing back, and then it's becoming professional wrestling. Let's be honest. This is two professional wrestlers. This is Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock arguing with each other on Twitter, and Vince McMahon getting caught in the middle, except for Vince McMahon is Dana White. And Masvidal is The Rock, and Jake Paul is clearly Stone Cold Steve Austin. Jake claims the UFC generated about $1 billion in 2021 alone, so essentially he's saying $500 million should be earmarked and divvied up among the talent themselves. There's more. Jake wants Dana to put a focus on healthcare for the fighters, so they went through all of this. So Dana has done this really good job of putting the ball in the court of the people he wants to get into bed with business-wise, and either make it too difficult to get out. Like, basically it becomes too financially beneficial to say no, and the pressure put on you by making this part of social media also adds to the fact that they can't look like they're just backing out of good business opportunities or like they're not stepping up, right? So Dana White, who is a fantastic businessman, and this was the other, it says Dana White responds to Jake Paul's cocaine allegation with a proposed challenge. And then it just says, yes, this is a real headline. If there was any concern to trash talking and name calling between Dana White and Jake Paul, that it would appear to taper off, you can put those worries to rest. The UFC headman recently appeared on boxing's favorite Teddy Atlas show, and of course, the topic of social media star turned boxer came up. White used the opportunity to reiterate that he won't lend out any of his UFC fighters in a proposed a challenge related to drug testing. Apparently, Dana White is willing to undergo drug testing for cocaine if Jake Paul is willing to undergo drug testing for steroids. You can check out the direct quote from White that he dropped in the Conversations with Teddy Atlas podcast. It says, I've got a challenge for Jake Paul. This guy keeps saying that I'm a cokehead. He can randomly cocaine test me for the next 10 years if I randomly steroid test him for the next 2. Damn, that's brutal. What do you think?
Shots fired.
What do you think? Do you think there was a picture? Let's see. Do you think Jake Paul's on steroids?
No.
No? You think
No,
that's all natural?
I don't know, because like I seen his brother Logan Paul like do the actual training for it, so I think
you've seen like the training regimen they do. Okay.
Yeah, I told you, like, I used to watch this stuff before they ruined it.
That's interesting. For anyone who's outside the loop on the back and forth between these two men, the above quote probably sounds ludicrous. Given all that has transpired, however, it actually makes a lot of sense. Let's back up a little bit and talk about how we actually got to this incredibly weird place. A few years ago, Jake Paul's brother Logan put together some celebrity boxing matches. Jake fought the undercard and actually looked quite good, so he turned professional and started fighting on his own. He brutally KO'd ex-NBA player Nate Robinson in the undercard of the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. fight, and started calling out anyone famous who would listen, including Conor McGregor. UFC boss Dana White has been extremely dismissive of Paul and made numerous comments about how he's not a real fighter. He trashed his skills, and he said he'd never fight in the UFC. Is Jake Paul the one that Joe Rogan said was like actually talented? Like,
no, that's Logan.
Logan Paul, right? Because Logan has has a background in wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Logan actually has combat history, and also I just want to give a compliment to Logan Paul. I used to follow him on Vine, but after Vine, oh my God, I'm dating myself.
Boomer. How boomer?
But basically, he had the biggest comeback in his career. You remember the whole January 1st Japan suicidal forest video? Oh, you don't even know about it?
I don't know about that.
I think they took it down, but basically what happened was when Logan Paul was still like popular because of Vine days, he thought it would be funny because he went to the notorious Japanese suicide forest and he saw a dead body that was hanging from one of the bamboo trees, and he thought it would be funny to go film it.
Wow, that's freaking awful.
Film it and react to like, oh my God, I found a dead body, let me poke at it. Yeah, and he got canceled for that.
Well, yeah.
He got canceled for that, and like everybody ridiculed him. Like everybody. And like basically I thought his career was over.
This was Jake or Logan?
Logan.
Okay.
And then this is why I'm giving him a compliment, but when he started doing boxing and UFC, like his career came back and he became more humble after that.
Does Logan box or do UFC?
He does UFC, but at first it was like boxing a little bit.
It is funny that Jake Paul, like, he mostly he's not boxing boxers. He's boxing celebrities and people who do other disciplines.
Yeah.
So it's not really the same thing.
I don't know. I just don't like Jake. But Logan, you're cool.
There's absolutely money in this, though. What's funny about it is I made a reference the other day that made me feel old. I referenced Celebrity Deathmatch, and Miracle gave me this blank stare. She's like, what the hell is Celebrity Deathmatch? And that's kind of what it is. I mean, without the death part, it's basically these guys are getting rich off letting celebrities who no one likes fight each other and beat each other up.
Exactly, which is funny.
That's a great business model. Like, how much would you pay to watch me get my ass kicked? But then he keeps winning.
I think it's rigged.
You think it's rigged?
I think
that,
it is rigged.
Well, we actually
Because-
talked about that. We talked about that one episode.
The Mayweather fight with him where they hug, I was like, this is dumb. I didn't pay good free money to not
Good free money.
Yeah, because
we did get into like the thoughts that maybe his last fight might have been rigged, because some dude put up a video. He's like, look at the twist of his wrist. He's clearly giving him a sign to take the KO on the next one. I don't think it's rigged. They did advertise later that the one with Mayweather was an exhibition and not an actual fight. I think Mayweather would have knocked him out very quickly.
I still think it's funny. Mayweather's like, I don't need to read. I can pay somebody to read for me.
Yeah, well, when you got
I give him so
money.
much. I give him so much respect because he's like, I don't need to read.
When you've got FU money, you don't need to do that. So,
but yeah, again, I give respects to Logan, but I still think he's a terrible person after that video.
Which one is the one that's really into Pokemon?
That's Logan.
Logan? Okay. I always get the mixed up.
Just remember, Logan's the older one.
Okay.
Older one with longer hair.
Jake Paul took those initial comments very personally, the comments about him not being a real fighter, and started increasing his trash talking against Dana White, against the UFC, and against Conor McGregor. He publicly talked about UFC fighters allegedly being underpaid. He bashed McGregor's wife and even dressed up as White for Halloween, inferring that he has a cocaine problem, and he's made the claim more directly in a recent interview. At one point, his trash talking against White in the UFC got so aggressive, Logan Paul asked him to tone it down. Okay, so Logan was like, hey, dude, calm the F down. It says, obviously, the wager of drug testing is never going to happen. Neither of the men has anything to gain by subjecting themselves to drug testing. Does he not have to be drug tested for boxing?
No, you have to. It's every sport.
Okay.
Because they don't want you to take enhancements.
But they're talking about how, like, he's saying, I'll do... Well, you see what I'm saying, right? Like, he's saying, Dana White's saying if he gets steroid tested for 2 years, I mean, wouldn't he already be being steroid tested?
Well, okay, so...
Or is it because it's like not a... It's still it's a sanctioned fight. It's through the boxing commission.
Yeah, okay, so they do test for steroids. I was watching a video because... so this is where I fangirl over David So, but his friend Bart Kwan. So they're in weightlifting, and they explained it a lot because, like, he's into like UFC fights also, and they had an expert come on to their show explaining to it. So it's kind of hard because when you take certain things, they can't drug test it because like it's still legal.
Drugs with masking agents and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's still legal. So these fighters still are taking steroids to a certain extent, but it can't be like picked up. So it's kind of
legalize all the. Let them take whatever they want. I say.
know baseball used to be fun.
That's literally to say. It's like there's this. I at one point I posted this comment that was on a John Boy media video. John Boy is like this dude who does like baseball analysis.
Yeah.
And he's like, He's like, I'm sick of this boring. The comment's like, I'm sick of this boring no drugs. He's like, I want the guys to be jacked up on so many steroids. They look like they're like what was the Rock Pokemon?
Geodude?
Like the guy should look like the batter should look like Geodude.
Oh wait, are you sure the Rock one? Because there's Machamp. One of his evolutions looks like a guy that he looks like he's based on the Rock, where like he used to be in wrestling and wear that like tight speedos, and he's like, yeah.
So basically, he's like the guys should look like they should just be jacked to the gills, and the pitcher should be using so many like oily substances. Their hand is basically stuck in baby oil and petroleum jelly. And he's like, and just let them duke it out with whatever performance enhancing chemicals that they can have, right?
Yeah.
So just let them use whatever they want to their advantage. Arguably, baseball got saved by the steroid era during the home run derby, or the home run race.
Yeah, I remember.
God, you were so young at that point too. You weren't even born yet.
Yeah, but I still remember because I remember like the whole allegations with A-Rod and then like
Barry Bonds.
Yeah, Barry
Bonds.
Bonds. Yeah.
Ken, there's a reason I wear so many. I wear Twins hats because I'm from Minnesota, but I also wear a lot of Seattle Mariners hats and wear Seattle Mariners stuff because Ken Griffey Jr. is my favorite athlete of all time, and also the one who escaped no steroids and still the greatest swing in all of baseball. So he was the lone holdout to not be using drugs during at least as far as we can tell.
Again, there are certain steroids that can't be detected. It can be in other things.
Different time back then.
Well, okay, so another thing, like supplements, they do have like a little bit steroids, so sometimes you can't tell. So
well, yeah, there's legal steroids that you
Yeah.
take for if you know after injuries or for yeah, like you can take steroids for
I don't
illness.
know,
but that's
for
different.
me, like this is what Bart Kwan and Joe Jitsukawa said. We should just have a league of sports where they do all the drugs.
Let's just call it the All Drugs League.
The All Drugs League.
Let them do it. Let them if they want to subject their body to that. Let them do it.
I bet you a bunch of athletes will do it. They're like, "Are you gonna pay me more?"
Yeah, this is the funny part. Like you could make like the prize money more for like the ones who do it the legal or who do it the non-drug way.
Yeah.
But then if you for the ones who use the drugs, they get like a share of like whatever the pay-per-view buys are.
Yeah.
They're still going to get more money because more people are going to pay to watch all the jacked up athletes.
I want to see a man with like his veins coursing out his biceps punching another man that is like coursing with his. Sorry.
I was watching a video of like.
Sorry, I got too excited by like watching men like punching each other. Can't you?
It's very visceral. I was watching a video of the 1998 home run derby.
Yeah.
As somebody like me is wont to do in their free time, and because Ken Griffey Jr. just, as I mentioned earlier, beat the crap out of everyone that year. And there's this great video of Mark McGuire watching him, and he's chewing his gum like he's literally eating an animal because you could just tell he's probably the steroids, just the veins are popping out of his neck. Like,
No, that reminds me of this guy. I thought he was like okay looking, but I remember freshman year he had no muscles. He didn't have pectorals, and then
he's walking around shirtless at school.
No, because you can tell when you just wear a tank top, like you can tell like the muscle definition. But our senior year, all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, he had muscles.
Well,
and
how
like
many years went by? He could have just done
no,
that
I watched him like progress. Like
Miracle just weirdly has like progress sheets on all the men in her class. It's kind of weird, Miracle. It's kind of weird.
Hey.
Just saying.
Hey, leave me alone. I have my weird hobbies.
You're kind of weird, dude.
No, I don't. I don't do that. But no, like legit, like freshman to junior year, he was like a stick. But then senior year, all of a sudden, he had like big ass muscles and a big ass like pectorals. And like his pectorals, like no thing about steroids, you form like acne where your chest is or back knee. Because like you inject it into your muscles and it's like kind of gross. And he had it a lot, and like somebody accused him of taking steroids, and he was like really offended. He's like, no, I don't.
Well, and then if you get really angry, that's a sign too, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.